Welcome to ISE Content Studio here at ISE 2023 in Barcelona. Our topic today is digital signage managed services, and we have here Jeff Hastings, CEO of Brightsign. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
We're here at ISE, so how's ISE for you?
Well, first, ISE has been spectacular. We were just talking to several folks and comparing the volume of people here to 2019, which was last time we were in Amsterdam. And I think it's more people here. And I think the facility actually really helps since it's easier to move around. I think we personally are getting a lot more people in our booth than we did in 2019. So I think it's excellent. It's really nice to see people out and about again and be able to see people without masks and things like that. So we're really enjoying it, and it's a great show this year.
Fantastic, fantastic. Jeff, we want to talk a little bit about digital signage managed services. And I know it's a topic very close to your heart because it's because that's what Brightsign is all about. So how is Brightsign operating system different, and how do you provide all these services?
Well, so, one of the things that Brightsign, it really was our whole kind of value proposition. The reason we started the company from day one was solving problems of basically consumer operating systems, which, think Android, think Windows, all these things. Because what happens with a consumer operating system is they're built to have a desktop. They're built for us to interact with them. And quite frankly, I loved it. My Mac, I couldn't live without my Mac because I use that every day. But when you flip to digital signage and want to manage it, what you want is something that is rock solid. And not that the PC or Windows is not rock solid, but if something happens, it doesn't know how to fix it, right? So if I'm on my browser and some content locks up, the operating system, it just lets it go. Now, it could fix it, right? It could shut down the browser, but maybe have some other window in the browser. And it's like, oh no. So what we have done is solve that problem because it's not a consumer operating system. It doesn't have multiple applications running. There's one thing running. So when there is a failure, we know what to do and how to fix it because there's not an Excel spreadsheet running in the background or multiple HTML pages. We know. So what we can do is fix things one at a time. So let's say the HTML rendering engine stalls because of some content. We can close that. We can start it back up. We can also, let's say something happens and the machine is stalling out or something bad happening. We can reboot the player automatically because we know what to do. If the storage media gets corrupted, we can actually erase the media, format the media, pull all the content from the cloud and reconstitute a device. And why does that really matter? Is the people managing thousands or tens of thousands of these devices. If you don't have that, what that means is someone has to go touch that device. And if you have to go touch that device, it's several $100s. So by having this self-healing technology built into it, it saves the people who use our products hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
What you just described is a lot about performance and cost savings and service and things like this. But sustainability has become a very, very important topic in the industry. Are you supporting functions in that direction as well?
Well, I think one of the most interesting things about sustainability is longevity, right? Obsolescence. And obsolescence is really where, sustainability gets reduced and you're recycling things. One of the things that we do is our players last a long time. I mean, most of our players, when they're deployed, are out there for 6 to 8 years. If you take a comparable PC, most people after about 3 years, all the updates, they're not working. It's actually an interesting thing because the hardware actually still works. The sad thing is, it's all of these software updates and things that are kind of uncontrolled actually makes the device obsolete. And it really goes back to the consumer operating system because the consumer operating system, it continues to add features because it's a race. Everyone wants new features. In the digital signage world, no one ever uses any of those features. They just need an operating system. So what happens is the hardware actually gets obsolete much quicker than it has to because of these features that are coming. So with us, our operating system is super slim, dedicated to one thing. We're not adding all these new features for the consumer. So we get a lot of longevity to our platform. And you know, and from sustainability perspective, people are using these things for 6 to 8 years versus 3 years on a PC. So you think about that, like it reduces half of the waste that we would have.
Are your systems also energy efficient in certain ways, or?
Yeah. So if you take a classic PC, it's going to run about 60 to 80 watts best case. I mean, that's the power supply that's going to come with this. Most of our units run between 10 and 15 watts.
Oh,
so
that's a big difference.
like 5 times the energy. And it's energy has been one of these things that people kind of slowly monitor. But now what's happening with Europe, energy is like, the cost has gone up dramatically. So, having something 5 times as efficient, doing the same thing is dramatic.
But then we see development towards SoC very much, built-in players. Where do you see the limits of that technology versus having a separate player?
So the quote SoC, or really I think of it as an embedded media player. And so it's a market that's been around for many years now. I think it's probably 8 or 9 years that it's been out there. There's definitely a class of things that fit into those and work on those. But if you look at where they come from, it's an interesting a follow-up to a conversation about kind of consumer devices or consumer operating systems. Is LG and Samsung especially, but others do similar, is basically what they're doing is taking a consumer product, the smart streaming player, and taking off the application layer and, okay, here's your platform. Well, when, as being a person that's on Roku's board and been around streaming since a long time, very familiar with it. And, what you do in that consumer TV for streaming is you're trying to make the cheapest possible thing that can put up a user interface and stream content. That's because that's all it does. It doesn't do anything else. When you move to digital signage, it's like there's very little just streaming and simple user interfaces. People, early on it was like showing a video. We're long past that. We're now getting more richer and richer experiences. And if you look at that platform, it slowly gets better, kind of on the quote SoC, but it's not really targeted to high performance HTML, real-time rendering. So, there's a class of applications it works for, but most people, when they put in a digital signage application, the complexity grows over time. And I think that's where you kind of run into the limits of it. But it is a good thing in general. It's easier to use, and in fact, people don't think of us in the market, but we actually have partners. We have a built-in module. So, we sell, tens of thousands of quote SoCs in embedded displays. So it's not something that we don't look at, but going back to the, really looking at the longevity of things, if you go back and look at the quote SoCs, LG and Samsung, what have they brought these devices out? And in the consumer world, like you buy a consumer TV, how many times do you get a software update?
I don't know. You don't see it nowadays anymore.
You don't even see it, and you don't know it, but they don't really update it because in the consumer world, you buy it, and there's no thought about the longevity of that. It's when it dies, you throw it away. In the commercial world, people, it's expensive to go replace these things because someone has to pay for that labor, or they're in places. So if you look at what they've done, the operating system, the rendering engine and stuff, never gets updated. So what happens is those displays, the longevity is reduced because that software, if you want to deploy some new software, either your software vendor has to support, 6 different versions of the operating system and really obsolete technology. And then you also deal with security issues of those rendering engines were insecure, their bugs fixed. So, what's happening is what we see out there is the life cycle of these things are reduced because they're not treating them like a commercial product. But, the whole thing of having an integrated player, it's a great idea. It definitely reduces some handling costs. But at the end, you need to have something that has longevity because otherwise your costs kind of spiral out of control.
Jeff, before we let you go, there's one question. Google Chrome OS is on the market for a year now, for a little longer. So, but when I talk to them, it sounds similar to your offering. But where do you see the differences between what you do? I mean, you're a market leader with 2 million sold players. That's a different story. But they are on a similar path, aren't they? Or
Well, yes and no. It's a little bit. The marketing message is similar to kind of ours.
Yeah.
But the reality of it, it's built for a consumer platform. I mean, it's built.
Education notebooks and everything.
Exactly. I mean, it's a consumer platform. It's got a desktop. Now they've got these ways. Oh, disable this, disable that. But you still end up with the same thing, in that operating system does not know what it's supposed to be doing, because it can have multiple applications. So it doesn't have this kind of fail-safe technology and recovery technology that we've built into it. But yeah, it's yet another operating system, but primarily it's a consumer operating system. I mean, that's what it's built for. It's not, they try to put a layer on top of it to say, oh, well, you can put it in this kind of mode, that kind of, but at the end of the day, it's multi-application based. You've got multiple applications, and it doesn't know which one is the important one.
So the media player world gets more colorful, more options, but you're still.
Our core message is, we build these players that are incredibly reliable, and they last a long time. And that's really what means when you have thousands of players out there and have to manage them. Being able to have them running and not have to send people to the stores to fix them is really what makes it economically feasible.
Jeff, thanks a lot for being our guest today.
Awesome.
Thank you. That was Jeff Hasting, CEO of Brightsign.